Hello, this is Mike Schmitz for Asian Efficiency, and today I want to show you how to integrate nvALT for Mac and Drafts for iOS. This is part 4 in a series on Quick Capture. In part 1, I introduced you to the importance of Quick Capture and its role in the GTD methodology. In part 2, I introduced you to nvALT for quick capturing on your Mac. In part 3, I introduced you to Drafts for quick capturing on iOS. In this video, I want to show you how to set up nvALT and Drafts so you can send your quick captured data on iOS to your Mac so you can process it more easily. Even though you can process information in Drafts thanks to the powerful export actions we looked at last week, I personally find it easier to deal with many of these things on my Mac. Since that's where I spend the majority of my time, unless I can decide immediately where I want to send that information, I usually end up sending it to nvALT on my Mac. It's not always easy getting data out of one application and into another like this, but you can do it using a custom Dropbox action in Drafts, and I'm going to show you how to set that up in this video. I personally use this workflow all the time. I find it much easier to process things on my Mac, but sometimes I need to quick capture information when my Mac isn't accessible. For example, I listen to a lot of audiobooks during my commute using the Audible app. Many times, I'll hear something that I want to remember, so I'll open up Drafts and jot down a quick note. When I process my Drafts inbox, I might be inspired to write a blog post about something I wrote down. So I'll send that text to nvALT and pick up editing on my Mac, where I find typing much easier. Some other scenarios where it may be useful to capture on iOS using Drafts and then process on your Mac include writing down quotes you want to remember, capturing lyrical inspiration for songwriters, quickly jotting down an address or phone number, taking notes at a conference session to be cleaned up and processed later, recording thoughts and follow-up actions when listening to podcasts. In all of these examples, sending text from Drafts on iOS to nvALT on our Mac would be very useful and probably save us a lot of time when we stop to process that information. Tying applications together like this is where things really start to get fun because the possibilities of what you can do as you build your own workflows are pretty much endless. There are basically 3 main components to any workflow. First, the trigger action from the source application. Second, the output action in the destination application. Third, the cloud service that ties them together. In this example, the source is Drafts, the destination is nvALT, the cloud service we're going to use is Dropbox, the trigger is a custom export action, and the output is our quick captured text appearing in nvALT. To start, open up nvALT on your Mac. Once you launch it, take a look at the settings as there are a couple things you need to change before you can send data to nvALT from Drafts. Under Notes, there are a couple changes you need to make. First, change Store and Read Notes on Disk As from single database to plain text files. This enables other applications to read and write nvALT data because it's stored as plain text instead of in an nvALT proprietary database. Second, you need to change the Read Notes from folder to a folder inside your Dropbox folder. All your nvALT notes will now be synced via Dropbox to a folder you created. In this case, Notes. Now that we have a central repository for our notes, we can set up Drafts to send to this location as well. When you open Drafts, you're presented with a blank draft. You don't have to worry about naming the file or putting it in a folder. Drafts will keep all your quick captured text in a stack like a physical pile of notebooks sitting on a table. You just type your text, and once you're done, your changes are automatically saved, and you can decide where you want to send your text using one of Drafts' many export actions. You won't see nvALT in the list of export actions, though. Before we can send our text to nvALT, we need to set up a custom Dropbox action in Drafts. We can do this from the Settings menu. To access the settings in Drafts, press the Export button and press the Settings icon. Scroll down until you see a section titled Custom Actions. One of the options is Dropbox Actions. Select this because ultimately what we want to create is a Dropbox action that points to our Notes folder, which is synced with nvALT. Select Dropbox Actions and press the plus icon to create a new Dropbox action. Pick a name for the action, for example, nvALT, and point it to the folder you want to use inside of Dropbox, for example, Notes. There are a couple other options as well. I've selected File as Timestamp and predefined file name as Drafts. This means when I export a file from Drafts to nvALT, it will be titled Drafts-Date and Timestamp, so I know where it came from and when it was sent. Your final action settings should look like this. Return to the Drafts home screen, the blank draft. Type in the text you want to quick capture and hit the Export icon. This time, you should see a Dropbox icon and the title nvALT. You may have to scroll to find it though. If you want to change the order in which your actions appear, you can rearrange them under Settings by selecting Manage Actions. Once you select the nvALT export action, you'll get a confirmation message and a green checkmark will appear next to the export action, confirming your text was sent to Dropbox and is now in the appropriate folder, the one you selected when creating the export action. Since your text is now in Dropbox, you can now access it in nvALT on your Mac. From here, you can easily move this information into your task manager, reference system, or other appropriate application. Keep in mind that this is not a true sync. This workflow allows you to send quick captured information from Drafts on iOS to nvALT on your Mac so you can process it later, but it doesn't work the other way around. This wouldn't really be beneficial anyway because it's harder to move text to the appropriate application on iOS than it is on your Mac, even with Drafts' many export actions. So that's how I incorporate Drafts and nvALT into my workflow, and I'd love to hear how you use these tools together in the comments.